Here's the brutal truth about bodybuilding. Most people fail not because they lack willpower, determination, or even the right information and systems. Most people fail because they think they have to be perfect, and if they are not perfect, they believe they've already lost. Now, this kind of black and white mindset is exactly the kind of thinking that I see that holds 90% of people back from achieving their goals and, more importantly, achieving their actual potential. The kind of thinking that if you don't follow your meal plan to a T every single day, you don't hit your macros on point every single day, it's a complete waste of time. The kind of thinking that if you don't progress on every single lift, on every single session, it was a waste of a training day. That is a reason why so many people are stuck in cycles of guilt, rebound weight gain, and long-term inadherence. In this video, I'm going to teach you to operate like a high-level athlete, someone who can execute with absolute precision, but also with resilience. In this video, I'm going to be telling you how to master the gray area, that space between precision and collapse, and using this to fuel your long-term progression without falling out of the process. Now, this black and white mindset is often associated with high performers, people that have very ambitious goals and have very specific timelines on how they want to achieve them. These people are used to performing with intensity across every area of their lives. But here's the truth. Life never cares about your plans. It is going to throw you curveballs and stress and, things that just take you out of your routine and daily structure. And the more that you define success as perfect adherence, the more you are setting yourself up for long-term failure, because nothing can be perfect every single day. And bodybuilding is a game of ticking the boxes every single day. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the term cognitive dissonance. And when one of your inherent beliefs is that the only way to be compliant on a plan is with 100% accuracy and 100% precision, that is setting you up in a situation where anything less than that seems like a failure. And it makes you feel as though you are not a bodybuilder. You shouldn't be doing this. You are a failure. And that leads to these self-perpetuating beliefs and these vicious cycles of behavior where you're either on your plan or you're off your plan, leading you to essentially tread water and never make any long-term progress. So what is the fix here? It is embracing something that I like to call structured flexibility. This is not forgetting about your plan, and it's not forgetting about what optimal execution looks like. It's simply about adjusting your standards of execution when life throws its curveballs at you. It's a way of keeping momentum even when things aren't perfect or optimal. For example, if you can't follow your meal plan outright, learn to track your macros. If you can't hit your macros perfectly, maybe you're on vacation or maybe you're on a work trip, at least be able to hit your protein and track your calorie goals. If you can't get in all your training sessions for a week or you can't finish a particular training session, guess what? You can still get a very productive workout with 2 or 3 compound movements. Maybe you throw in some intensifier techniques to increase the stimulus. But the thinking here is something is better than nothing. Something to maintain momentum is certainly a lot better than losing that momentum entirely. In situations where all of these variables are compromised, training is suboptimal, output and cardio and expenditure is suboptimal, nutrition is suboptimal, we need a baseline level of deployment that can be followed, whereby at the very least, you are not losing progress. And that sounds like a very minimal thing to ask for. But in the context of a situation where 95% of people would be losing progress, maintaining what you've already developed is a kind of progress in and of itself. The best competitors are the ones that think strategically. Your primary goal is to always minimize damage, maximize results, but more than anything, maintain momentum and maintain consistency in the long term. Remember that true success is cumulative. Success isn't built on a day, and failure isn't built on a day. It's not built in a week. Success is a result of consistency in the long run. And as you've probably heard before, and as I've said many times before, I would rather somebody be executing at 85% for months on end than somebody executing at 100%, but they can only see it out for a couple of weeks. Now, with a lot of my clients, whether they be competitors or lifestyle clients that have very ambitious and high-level goals, we work on a sliding scale of adherence. And they will always let me know with an upcoming week what their anticipated level of adherence is going to be. And I take that feedback to change the markers that we're looking at in terms of, was it a successful week or not? A green week would be an opportunity for perfect adherence. You're at home, you're in your routine, you're in your rhythm, you have all the tools that you need at your disposal to execute at 100% accuracy. An orange week would be a week where there's a little bit of a disruption. Maybe there are a couple of days away, a couple of days where you're traveling. Maybe there's a wedding that you need to attend or some kind of social engagement. On those days or those weeks, at a very minimum level, we make sure that you're hitting your protein every single day and you are tracking your calories and you're at least achieving or staying within the confines of your calorie goal. A red week would be a week where every possible curveball that could be thrown at you is. The possibility of 100% compliance is not even a thought in your head. In these particular weeks, all I ask is that people hit their protein goal, and by the end of their week, they manage things closely enough that they are able to come to a net weekly calorie goal, or at least stay within those boundaries. This allows you to have sufficient flexibility and freedom to deal with the vicissitudes of life and all the stress and personal issues, work issues that life might be throwing at you. But from a very zoomed out perspective, at least not regress, at least not lose progress. The second strategy that we use here is creating plans for these kind of weeks in advance. So if somebody travels frequently, if somebody has, let's say they're in a sales position and they need to go out to restaurants to entertain clients, instead of just allowing them to wing it, we actually have a plan in place in terms of these are the kinds of foods that you should be ordering. This is how you should be ordering it. This is how you handle alcohol consumption. This is how you track it. We'll go in so far as to estimate that there might be a 20 to 30% margin of error in terms of the food that you track versus the food that the restaurant gives you. And we build in that margin of error to their weekly macros and calories. What I may do in certain scenarios is even build somebody multiple different training plans. One, which is their baseline, which is obviously if everything is optimal with the weekly volume, frequency, exercise selections, etc., that I would have originally planned out for them. And then a substitute to fall back on, which would be lower frequency, lower volume, and maybe building in, equipment that would be even available at a hotel gym. Something that just allows them to keep the routine, keep the habit, and keep the momentum, even though they might not be training at their full capacity. Finally, I really try and get people to take on board that there are many, many different kinds of wins that we can be focusing on outside of just the scale moving down or moving up, measurements moving down or moving up, keeping a track on training performance, energy levels, digestion. These things are wins outside of the typical things that we would deem as progress in a specific week. And the data really does show us that consistency more than perfection is truly what drives behavioral change in the long term. If a lot of what this endeavor is about is building habits whereby then you can function on autopilot and you can elicit those behaviors without even thinking about them, perfection isn't what we're aiming for. Consistency over a long period of time is what elicits that behavioral change. The best athletes that I have, the high performers, they're not perfect. They're not. And that is what the average person needs to hear. The guys that you are aspiring to look like and the achievements that you're aspiring towards, the people that are at that level, they're also not perfect, but they don't always intend to be perfect. They strive for perfection when they can, but they are honest about when they can't be perfect. And instead of just throwing the plan out the window, they adapt their behaviors to still have a level of implementation which is going to be commensurate with their goals, albeit maybe not optimal, better than nothing. Being adaptable and relentless in the pursuit of your goal is absolutely key. If you really want to achieve what you've set out to do, throwing things out the window just because a day or a week hasn't gone absolutely according to plan is absolutely bizarre. And it's one of the only endeavors where we see people doing that as kind of a baseline behavior. You know, if you're at school or university and you fail one test or one exam, you don't drop out of school. You know, you just study harder, work harder, and you pass the next one. You know, this is the typical mindset of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And ultimately, this comes down to, I think, the most key point here, which is that true success in this endeavor is manifested in a physical way, but is brought about by the right mindset. It's brought about by the right psychology. And if you do not have the right mindset, you are never going to achieve your physical body composition related goals. Build a champion level physique. And to truly take where you are to the next level, you need to be adaptable, you need to be resilient, and you need to be able to operate within that gray area. Understand that perfection is something to strive for, but not something that you're necessarily going to be achieving on a daily basis. Learn to adapt your plan when necessary, without guilt, and without throwing your plan out of the window. As always, fix your mindset, get your thinking and your thought processes and your beliefs in the right place, and your physique will invariably follow.